Before the age of 18, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused. I'm Jill Horner. This is Comcast Local Edition. With me this hour is Abbie Newman, Executive Director of Mission Kids. Thanks so much for being with us, Abbie.
Thanks so much for having me.
When we hear numbers like that, 25% of girls will be sexually abused before the age of 18. That's astounding, and it's hard to believe that there are that many cases, but you say that many cases are actually not even reported.
That's true. The reason that the statistics come out of 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys is that actually many cases are unreported when they're children, but as children then become adults and are having difficulty dealing with what happened to them and they seek treatment or help, that is when therapists and psychologists hear about reports of abuse. And then in backtracking the data, that's where these statistics come from.
Really astounding numbers. And on an annual basis, there are about 700 investigated cases of child abuse in Montgomery County alone. Let's talk a little bit about the process of actually investigating a case of child abuse, because we're dealing obviously with children, but we're dealing with some difficult family situations as well. How did the process used to work?
It used to be that if there was a report of child abuse, then many different agencies needed to be involved, as they still are. You have the district attorney's office, child protective services, law enforcement needed to be involved, and the child would have to go to each of those locales to be interviewed by very well-meaning professionals, but whose job it was not to be specialized in interviewing children. And what was noted is that by the time this child would reach a trial stage, that they were often so worn out that they could not even get on the stand to testify yet another time.
Would it also be a detriment if something did go to trial, that the child had told the story so many times that the story may shift or change because it's coming from a 5 or a 6-year-old?
Sure, and if you think about it, even as an adult, each time you repeat the same story, semantics are different, maybe the way you phrase something is differently, and defense attorneys, that's what their job is to do, is to find what appear to be inconsistencies and make them inconsistencies.
And now through Mission Kids, you're working to get everyone on the same page, and you use a forensic interviewer. What do you mean by a forensic interviewer?
A forensic interviewer is somebody who is specially trained to ask open-ended and age-appropriate questions specifically directed to children who have potentially been sexually or physically abused. And this way they can ask the questions in a non-leading fashion so that the children are able to tell their story and it's not in a traumatic fashion to the child.
And they're able to tell it once?
Yes, instead of several times over and over again, so they're not traumatized each time they have to tell the story.
Do you actually record the child's testimony so that it can be reviewed at a later date?
We do. It's recorded on a DVD, and the beauty of it is that when the interview is being done, the child is alone with an interviewer, but through use of closed-circuit television, the whole team can watch the interview as it goes forward. So there's an assistant district attorney, somebody from Child Protective Services, a detective, county detectives, all watch the interview. And there's nothing like watching a child testify as they tell this story, because the body language is so important. And it's being recorded, so if there's ever a question later on about how was a question asked exactly and what exactly was the answer, it's right there on the DVD. You can't argue with it.
And you've worked to bring different police departments together, different interested parties, so that really everyone can get access to the same information at the same time.
Yes, there are 52 different police departments in Montgomery County, and every one of those departments has signed on in writing and in practicality and in use. They are coming to Mission Kids to have the interviews of the potential child victims done there.
And you're working to make this a very kid-friendly environment so that the child feels as comfortable as possible telling a very difficult story.
Absolutely. When you come into the waiting area of Mission Kids, it's not like a police station, which is meant to intimidate criminals. It's warm, there are yellow walls, blue couches, stuffed animals around, a computer to take the kids' minds off of everything. And so they're comfortable when they have to talk that they're in a safe place.
Abbie, we just have a few seconds left, but many people think you may be supported through government entities or through police departments, but you're a nonprofit organization.
We are a nonprofit organization. We live off donated funds and people who support us and believe in what we do.
And in doing what you do, long term, what does it mean for these kids?
It means that they can go on to heal earlier. Children begin to heal when they tell their story to an adult who believes them.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Abbie Newman, Executive Director of Mission Kids. I'm Jill Horner.